Today I'm joined here with Dale Foss. She is the owner of Serenity Yoga, and she is also a yoga instructor. And first off, thank you so much for coming in and explaining this. Particularly, you have what's called adapted yoga. How did you get into this sort of yoga?
Well, it's always been kind of an interest of mine, but I really got into it when I was approached by the MS Society to run a yoga class for them. And I started working with people that are afflicted with MS. And it's a case of, people say, well, how can somebody that's, stuck in a wheelchair do yoga? Well, there's always something you can do. So that's where I kind of been working with my experience as a yoga teacher and adapting the yoga postures to everybody's ability. And that's where we came up with adapted yoga. And it's really kind of taken off, and we have not only people afflicted with MS, but people with arthritis, with chronic back pain, chronic shoulder pain, knees, any part. And yoga is not about becoming more flexible or whatever. It's about connecting with the body again and breathing. So yoga is basically, the word yoga comes from the word yoke. And what you're doing with yoga is connecting or yoking together your body, your mind, and your breath. And your breath is your connection. It's like the wire that runs between the body and the mind. And so it's very important. And once you get people breathing and also getting back into their body, because we spend a lot of time outside of ourselves. Yeah. And this is what happens, when you have a disability, you think, oh, the body's in control and I can't do anything. Well, that's really unfortunate, because you can still do lots.
And why do you think it's important for, especially people who do have certain disabilities, whether it be in a wheelchair or they have physical disabilities like MS, how important is it to still be able to say you can still do this kind of exercise? We're just going to modify it just a little bit.
I think it's very important because, as I said, it gives you back the control. Because oftentimes with a disease like MS or any kind of a disability, you feel like your body has failed you and you no longer have any control over what's happening. And I believe that you really do have lots of control. And it's a fact of life, and doing yoga, like I said, gives you back that control, that feeling of control. And I think that's so important. And you don't feel like an oddity anymore.
And do you do scheduled classes for those, for the people that, that have physical disabilities? Do you schedule those kind of classes?
Yes, I do. I started out, like I said, it was primarily for people afflicted with MS, but over the years it has grown on me, and we've included others. So now I run what I call an adapted yoga class every morning, Tuesday morning, at my yoga studio, and that includes anybody and everybody that feels that they can't do any other kind of yoga or any other kind of fitness exercise. And I work, we start out with chairs. If you can't get down on the floor, that's not a problem. I'm not going to make you get down on the floor. I adapt it to a chair. That's what adapted is all about,
Yeah. And so really quickly before we wrap up, for those people who would like to try out adapted yoga, how can they how does the registering for the classes work?
Basically, you can do, I don't really do a fixed registration. I do a drop-in. Okay. So it's a case of you just come to the class and try it out. It's a drop-in. And then if you want to come on a regular basis, I have a small fee of, like, you buy a kind of a punch pass for $80, and that gives you 10 classes. And you can just use them as you are able to attend. So it's not, you're not locked into a certain 8 or 10 weeks or anything. It's just a case of you drop in.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming in and explaining. I've never heard of adapted yoga, but it's truly amazing that, you know, even though you're confined into a chair or you have, you know, MS, you can still be able to get back into your body and be, you know, one with yourself. So thank you so much for
Yes.
coming in and explaining.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you.